climate change area. Now, I know for a lot of our Democratic friends, that's an area that's very important to them. And look, it's important for our planet too, because without question, there's a lot of significant changes that have been going on just within the last, 10, 20 years. And certainly in my lifetime, I've seen a lot of them. And there's a lot of things that are continuing to change. And it is something that we need to be concerned about. The question is, what can we do and what should we do? Let's listen to what the president said, and then we'll come back on the other side.
We see it everywhere. Record-breaking heat waves in the United States and China. Wildfires ravaging North America and Southern Europe. A fifth year of drought in the Horn of Africa. Tragic flooding in Libya. My heart goes out to the people of Libya. That's killed thousands of people. Together, these snapshots tell an urgent story of what awaits us if we fail to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and begin to climate-proof the world.
Look, okay, there is no question that things are changing in the climate, but the idea that we can lead the world and make all these changes is not connected to reality again. Because look, we have no impact and no influence over China, over Russia, and very little over India, which are some of the biggest violators of all these things. So it does no good to say, yes, this climate is a big issue and we're going to take the lead and we're going to, help everybody make these changes. Number one, the science is very clear that something's going on with the climate. It is not entirely clear that some of these actions could actually reverse it or even stop it. That part is unknown. And we have to do something, because to just take no action at all could indeed lead to much greater problems. And there are some legitimate questions about whether we should or shouldn't. And many people disagree over those, and that's not anything I want to get into because that's not my area of expertise. But what we do need to understand is that if the United States wants to have influence over these other countries, especially the ones who have the biggest impact on the footprints of the very inputs that are causing a lot of these problems in our atmosphere, then we're going to have to change the way we do business. Here's one of the big problems that I've had with how we've done foreign policy, not just in the Biden administration, but in virtually everyone, going back to the Bush administration, maybe going all the way back to JFK even. Things have kind of changed since then. But look, if all we ever do is want to be tough, and we want to sanction everybody that we don't like, and we want to put military pressure and military threats on people to do things that we want them to do, and when they don't, then we make them into pariah nations and we don't even want to talk to them. That all briefs well at the moment. And again, look, all I care about is what's good for America. And what's good for America is to have influence to where we can actually get some of our even adversaries to take actions that are beneficial to us. And right now, we have virtually none of that. China's not going to do anything that we want them to unless it's 100% in their interest, because we have no influence over them, because we try to seek outcomes that are 100% good for us, and we could care less whether it's good for them or not. Now, sometimes in the past that's worked. In fact, it's worked a lot, that we just did whatever we wanted to do, no matter what anybody else said, and they were literally powerless to do it. Like in the 1990s, Russia was a rump state left over after the collapse of the Soviet Union. They had no power. There's nothing that they could do. They could complain about things, but they had no power, no military power, economic power, and no influence in the world anymore. So we did whatever we wanted to. The same with China. They were very weak militarily. They had a very old and backward economy, and there's very little that they could do about what we wanted. It's not the 1990s anymore. We don't have that capacity anymore. Even India, who's ostensibly our friend and certainly not an adversary, they're not the same as they were in the 90s either. A lot of these countries are now imposing their own will because they want to do what's best for their interest. If we're going to survive and excel and prosper into the future, we have to change the way we do business. Look, I just don't care if people say we have to be tough. Being tough and not being wise is counterproductive. It does not help us. It harms us. And if you want to harm America the most, then have an unyielding kind of attitude that says, no, I'm just going to try to tell everybody what we're going to do and see how that's going to work out. We know how it's going to work out because we're living it right now, because we don't have influence over the people that we need to have influence over. And if we want to get that back it's going to take a long time. I'll just say right up, this is not a quick change, but it's going to require first a change in understanding that the world is not 1990 anymore. We're not in relative terms as strong as we were back then, and they're not in relative terms as weak as they were back then, and they're not going to go backwards. They're going to continue to go forward. What that means is that we have to have an accommodation mindset that recognizes that we can get a lot of what we want, but we're not going to get everything that we want. And that we have to let some of these other players get what they want. And right now, Gwen, if you say that to anybody, that we have to have a negotiation with China, pick your issue, pick your subject, doesn't matter. Military, economic, some of these trade issues, that you want to have a win-win situation where China, okay, this is important to you. We're going to let you have success on that, but this is important to us and we really need this. And okay, that at the end of the day, that works for us. I mean, you'd get run out of town on a rail, unfortunately. They'll call you weak on China. They'll call you a pacifist. All kinds of things that actually end up harming us. I mean, how many times do we have to say these things about everything is Munich in 1950? Oh, if we don't take action here, all these horrible things are going to happen. And they're not going to, because we have the military power to defend our country. And I'm a strong advocate of continuing that. I'm a very big advocate of a strong national defense. That's why I served 21 years in active service, fought in 4 combat deployments, don't resist, or don't wish I hadn't done any of it. I don't regret anything that I've done on active duty to defend America's interest and to support a strong defense capability for our country. And I'll never change from that. But I'm definitely for doing it the smart way, ways that actually have a chance to obtain positive outcomes for us. And if we continue to act like we did in 1990, in 2023 and all the way up into the 2030s and potentially beyond, we're going to progressively go backwards. We're going to have issues go even more against us, and we're going to have more trouble because as other people become comparatively stronger than they were, they're going to be a lot less willing to buckle into whatever we tell them to do. So we have to change our mentality, and it needs to start quickly. And unfortunately, you get a lot of these, frankly, older people like Biden and a number of these old politicians we have these days on both sides of the aisle. It's time for a new generation, and that'll be a topic for another day. But we have to change our mentality. We have to be willing at our level, at people level, to be able to say, hey, we don't have to just tell everybody what to do all the time if it's not going to work, especially. But let's start getting into the mentality that's like, okay, on some of these other issues, things that are important to them, we're going to say, all right, you can win on this one. You can have what you need on that one, as long as we're going to also get this stuff over here. And then you're going to find over time that we can actually start having some influence because they may start to willing to listen to us a little bit more. But as it is right now, we're not willing to compromise, and so far, neither are they. China is even more and more obstinate and unwilling to compromise on anything that they don't absolutely have to. And that's understandable, because when both sides are just competing all the time, trying to outdo the other and give nothing, then it just ratchets up the problems. And of course, it increases the chance that one day this stumbles into a war. And that would be catastrophic for America's interests. You think that it might be bad for us if we start giving in on some of these issues in order to have a wise compromise so that we get some things we want. You think that's weak. That's nothing compared to what happens if we fail to take wise actions, continue to be belligerent, and then one day get into a war and we are catastrophically wounded by that. Even if we don't lose outright, which certainly would be possible. But the loss of our troops in any kind of actual conflict with China would severely damage our ability to defend American interests worldwide or even our own shores. That is by far the worst outcome.